Good evening, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. by recognizing the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga-Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. With that, we'll begin with a motion to amend the agenda. It's moved by Councillor Ferreira, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The Council amend the May 15th, 2023 Council agenda to add correspondence from Jennifer Letts to section 16.3. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. And a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council approve the May 15th, 2023 Council agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. Are there any announcements this evening? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. One last plug for Smithfield for now. Their fun fair is on Wednesday night at the school. I believe it starts at 5, goes till 7:30. Like to see you there.
Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you. We had a fantastic showing on Saturday for the strategic planning. Just want to give a shout out to everybody that we're doing it again tomorrow, starting in the morning, having an afternoon session and an evening session. More info available on brighton.ca.
Thank you for that, sir. Councillor Fredis.
Thank you, Chair. Just another reminder to my colleagues in Council, Accessibility Awareness Week, May 28th to June 3 here in the lobby. I trust you've all signed up. I still stand with a broken arm, so I guess Jeff was able to convince you all. The only other announcement to make is sadly, Council lost to staff at the bowling event last week for helping the kids. And I apologize. I was supposed to wear my lei in recognition of our defeat, but I forgot it at home. So I beg your forgiveness.
I'm sure staff will forgive you, Councillor Fredis. It didn't help that they had a ringer over here. I'm pretty sure she's got her professional bowler's card or something hidden away somewhere. Are there any other announcements? Brings us to the adoption of the minutes. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council adopt the May 1st, 2023 meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council adopt the May 8th, 2023 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. We have no public meetings this evening. Director Whitfield, are there any citizens' comments? Thank you. Brings us to staff reports. First report is with regard to the Codrington Farmers Market request for funds. Director Whitfield, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council receive the Codrington Farmers Market request for funds report and direct staff to provide a grant in aid of $1,000 for entertainment fees and purchase a vendor policy for the artisans to cover participation at the Codrington Farmers Market from May 21st to November 5th, 2023. And further, that council directs staff to obtain a grant pardon me, to obtain a grant and aid request from the Codrington Farmers Market for the 2024 budget process. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the Memorial Bench, Stone and Tree Public Donation Policy. Director Miller, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir? Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fredis. Sorry. It might not be moved by Councillor Fredis. Does anyone have motion form 9.2 on your desk?
Do you want me to print one out?
No, Madam Clerk, what I'm going to do is simply write that council receive ... and put 9.2 beside it. And unless we change the motion, we'll read it based on the director's recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the motion will read that council receives the report from the Director of Parks and Recreation and passes a motion to endorse the attached documentation to create a new municipal memorial bench, stone and tree donation policy to deal with future donation requests on municipal properties. Is there a mover? Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
I do find that the fee for the policy, especially maybe the memorial bench, is a little steep. Is there opportunity to kind of revisit that, Elizabeth? $3,000? If we want to encourage residents to kind of celebrate or honors people in the community, $3,000 seems like a lot of money. I would have another suggestion as well, in order to maybe save costs, that we at some point, instead of putting a bench at each specific request, that we do it maybe twice a year, so that we kind of do maybe have a deadline in the spring, have a deadline in the fall, that we're doing a bunch at one time instead of. That might be a little bit of a cost saving as well, but I do find that $3,000 is a little bit steep. I know the DBIA last year or the year before worked with our public works staff to place a bench on Prince Edward Street to celebrate Alice Richardson. And I am sure that there was not that much money spent. I know costs go up, but it just seems a little steep to me. I would rather see us encourage people to do these things, or if benches need to be placed, the municipality will be paying them on their own dime.
Thank you for your comment. Any other discussion? Would you like to hear from the director on the $3,000 cost, or would you like to propose an amendment?
I would like to maybe hear on the dollar cost, and maybe we can kind of compromise at some point. I'm sure that this policy doesn't need to be passed tonight. We can kind of bring it back with some other considerations.
I don't think there's an urgency, but perhaps Director Miller can speak to both the cost and the urgency.
Again, looking at different policies from other towns, the $3,000 was actually was an amount that was less. Originally, we were looking at 3,500. Most towns are like that. You're looking at buying a nice bench. You're looking at getting a good engraving. You're looking at the cost of concrete. the cost of digging a hole, delivery of the bench, the whole thing. And that's good for a 10-year period with another 10-year option to renew. That's the rationale behind it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Pretty much break even.
I have to agree with that. That proposal you've got there, exactly. By the time you do everything and have a quality bench, I think 3,000 is appropriate.
I think that's, I think for you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's the idea too, is to get a uniform bench that's some good quality that, you know, the town will use, as opposed to just putting something, a bench in that.
One hopes the whole municipality uses it.
Well, you know,
I do know what you mean. And I noticed that these would be accessible benches.
yes, well.
The intent is to provide accessible benches for municipal properties.
Yes,
Okay, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we talking about dedicating existing benches or putting benches in places that didn't have benches before?
The latter. Yeah. Councillor Butwell.
Further to Councillor Wheeldon's comment, if we have place for benches, it would be nice if the municipality just actually provided more benches anyways. So perhaps we could look at a reduced cost. We share costs with them, seeing that the service is being provided to everybody, and this just comes down to a dedication plaque and engraving.
Councillor Wright.
Thanks. Was part of the cost part of the making the benches actually accessible, or is that just grading itself?
it's
Director
just
Miller?
the cost of the bench itself, not accessible. The thing is, we are getting more requests for benches than we have spots at this point in time for a couple of projects we're doing. So, you know, in order to be fair to everybody, we need to have a policy.
Councillor Rowley.
I agree with having a policy. But I would wonder if we have a wait list for people to put benches in and we tell them it's going to be a $3,000 tab. How many benches are we then going to put in? Or are we going to still be putting in our own benches? I just see this a little excessive.
Councillor Butwell.
I agree with you, Councillor Rowley, that $3,000 really is a huge divide between the haves and the have-nots in this community. The average person of Bright cannot afford it, and therefore we simply honor the rich people for lack of clarity or lack of clarity.
Anyone else? It's your motion. Before I call the vote, I'll ask what you'd like to do with it. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Based on what the councillors are saying, we need to reduce the specs on it and make it affordable. And if so be it. If it's we just want to make sure it's safe, make sure it's doesn't get carried away and things like that. So maybe we should come back and you can review the specs on it and the cost of it based on those specs. Because 3,000 is a good quality, strong unit. It's not going to go anywhere, I presume. But you can whittle it down, and so we put a bench out there. So
At this stage, I'm going to assume that the director has done his due diligence, provided us with his best recommendation. It's up to council now to make our decision. If our decision is to pass the report and ask for a change in the policy, then that's up to council. If council doesn't like the price tag, then council needs to change the price tag and tell the director that's the way forward. The director can then from time to time let us know how much it's costing the taxpayer for these dedicated benches. That's the role that we have here. So your motion, what would you like to do?
Yep. So dedicated benches, and if we don't get any dedicated benches, as Councillor Butwell said, there are places in town where we could use a few more benches. So then the whole tab would be on the taxpayer or on the municipality, correct?
Which we
I
would budget for.
Right. So I would suggest maybe that we cost share instead of leaving it up to those who want to dedicate the total fee. Maybe can we send it back to staff and maybe ask them to look at something like that? And regardless of what we do this year, that going forward, we could add something to future budgets that we could kind of cost share with those who want to do something. I can't tell you exactly what it cost the municipality or the DBIA last year or 2 years ago to put a bench in for Alice Richardson, but I am sure it was not that high. And I know costs have gone up since then, but to me, it still seems like an excessive amount.
I'm a little reluctant to ask staff to go back and do their research again and then come back, because we've already got their research in front of us. So if it's our wish to put a price tag on this, then let's do that. Go ahead, Councillor Wielden.
Thank you. So as I understand it, we don't want a cheaper bench. What we want to do is share the cost of the bench between the people who want to dedicate it and the municipality. And so if it's possible, then Councillor Rowley to amend the motion to say include send it back to staff to include a cost sharing option.
I would consider that, yes.
Councillor Butwell.
Through you, Mayor Ostrander, to the Director of Parks, are there areas that have already been earmarked for these benches, and how many are we talking about here right now at this point?
Director Miller.
Right now, I have a project going on at the Presqu'île Government Dock, and we're looking at half a dozen benches. And right now, I have a fair amount of people that are willing to donate. And I needed to get a policy together just so word on the street doesn't get out of hand.
So as a follow-up, that would be $18,000. We'd be looking at 6 benches, $3,000 each. Are the individuals who are interested in sponsoring benches, because really it's about sponsoring a bench, are they interested? Do we have 6 people who are willing to put up that price tag?
I'm pretty sure we do.
Okay. Are there other places in town that are not just at the government dock where the majority of Brighton actually?
Well, this policy would be the municipality wide.
No, I understand that. I just mean, what I mean is you've got space for half a dozen benches at the municipal dock out in Presqu'île. Are there areas within the municipality, within town itself, that have been kind of on the radar for these benches as well?
There's a couple of spots, but nothing too, that jumps out right now. It's just, we do get phone calls from time to time.
Okay.
Families asking to donate.
Okay. Thank you.
So the question is, as your motion, you're asking that we refer it back to staff to reconsider the memorial bench without plaque fee and research cost sharing options. Is that correct? Yeah, is that correct? As the seconder, would you be amenable to that amendment?
Yes, I appreciate what the recreation director has done and doing his research, but I'll go along with Councillor Riley's request.
So the motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, after the amendment will read that council receives the report from the Director of Parks and Recreation and passes a motion to endorse the attached documentation to create a new municipal memorial, bench, stone, and tree donation policy to deal with future donation requests on municipal properties, and further refer the policy to staff to research cost-sharing options for the memorial bench without plaque fee. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to a staff report on administrative monetary penalty system bylaw. Mr. McGee, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Not at this time.
Motion before me is moved by Councillor Ferrettis, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council receives a staff report dated May 15th, 2023, regarding a draft bylaw to implement an administrative monetary penalty system in the municipality of Brighton, and that the draft administrative monetary penalty bylaw be given public notice in accordance with council's public consultation bylaw number 099/2019, wherein it is to be posted on the municipal website for a minimum of 14 days prior to being considered by council for its passing, and that the draft AMP bylaw be presented to the municipal solicitor for review and the giving of advice to the municipality, and further that the municipality of Brighton fees and charges bylaw number 001/2023 be revised as per an amending bylaw that would delete references to AMP fees and charges in favor of fees and charges cited in the AMP bylaw. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed that in the section regarding hearings, there's no allowance for hearings by virtual attendance. I'm wondering if that's something that could be added.
Mr. McGee.
I believe so. I can look into it. I know they do court matters through Zoom, so I don't see why we couldn't, but look, and I'm pretty sure we could do something like that.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Ferrettis.
To the chair, thank you. I do note that it says draft, and I recognize that there's one or two anomalies in there in the numbers, and I've had a conversation with Director Walsh, and I assume that those things will be adjusted prior to it going public.
My conversation with Director Walsh would indicate that that is in fact true, and I'm seeing a head nod from the director. Thank you for that, though. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to the Ontario Sheep Farmers Livestock Guardian Dogs report. Mr. McGee, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Not at this time.
Motion before me is moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receives the staff report dated May 15th, 2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 052/2020, a bylaw to license, regulate, and control dogs within the municipality of Brighton, and further the council approves the execution of bylaw 000/2023, being an amending bylaw to license, regulate, and control dogs within the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I've noticed in this bylaw that it gives a what looks to be a total exemption to members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers. And I'm wondering, do the Ontario Sheep Farmers Association have their own standards for animal welfare that would sort of supersede these or fill in the gap left by the exemption that they've been granted? Or does our bylaw allow a sheep farmer to presumably treat a dog however they want?
Mr. McGee.
Typically, the municipality, we don't look after animal welfare. It used to be the SPCA, and I believe they disbanded. I think it's through the Solicitor General animal welfare. So no, we just look after the the keeping of dogs and the licensing of dogs, but not the taking care of the treatment of dogs. That's done by another agency.
Councillor Butwell.
Through you to Councillor Wheeldon, Provincial Animal Welfare Society would look after livestock and livestock guardian animals.
Go ahead.
To follow up, section 4 talks about unsanitary conditions and things like that. I'm just wondering if those would no longer apply.
I think the deal is they would no longer apply municipally, but we don't enforce it anyway. It's enforced through the provincial system. So any concerns would be directed to the provincial animal welfare office. I forgot the name, but that's PAWS. That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, thank you. In the report here, it talks about adding section 8.8, which states livestock guardian dogs and herding dogs are exempt from all sections of the bylaw when the dog owners are members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers Association. And I understand from Mr. Welsh and Mr. McGee that we do have one in Brighton. But I think my concern is that it seems rather specific, because herding dogs are also used for cattle and in some cases chicken. And I'm wondering if we're making it too restrictive for the farming community. And within the document provided by the sheep growers, they offered some wording, and I've kind of cobbled it together. And if I may just share with you their cobbled wording, maybe it should say that livestock guardian dogs and herding dogs are exempt from all sections of this bylaw when the dogs work and live with domestic farm animals on a bona fide farm operation to control and protect the farm animals exclusively. Would that not provide the broader sense of coverage for all of the rural community and all of the farm operations?
I actually think that makes a lot of sense, given that we don't want to be amending the bylaw 4 or 5 times when, you know, the Goat Herders Association comes to us and the Cattle Herders Association, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on. I won't. Mr. McGee, would you be amenable to receiving that kind of amendment?
Yes, I mean, that's kind of what I was going for, not directly or not initially, but I wasn't going to make any changes to it. But after going to the rural advisory, they wanted to see words on paper, basically black and white, outlining that they're exempt. I assured them that, you know, through investigation, that, you know, we could determine if it was, you know, something, a practice, farm practice, and, you know, they wouldn't be negligent. Yeah, but now that if we're going to put in black and white, we should put in black and white for everyone else, just so we don't get other agencies coming to us at different times and then have half a dozen amendments.
I think we're all in agreement then. Thank you. Councillor Butwell, it's your motion. Would you prefer that it be read as amended, and then we would then do the same when we read the bylaw, or would you prefer that we refer it to staff and have the bylaw come back to us amended for passage?
I believe that it as amended would be suitable for everyone. Save some time.
Deputy Mayor Anderson, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So the only words I've added to this motion are as amended at the end. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to the council follow-up list. Before I read the motion, I will ask if any members of council have any questions or comments with regard to items on the follow-up list. Motion before me is moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council receive the council follow-up list for items up to May 1st, 2023. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We have no notices of motions or motions. We have nothing listed on unfinished business. Looks like we've lost Councillor Wright. So for the record, it's 7:01 PM and Councillor Wright has both left and returned to the meeting. We have no unfinished business listed on this. That brings us to bylaws. The motion is moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council gives a bylaws for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 052, being a bylaw to license, regulate, and control dogs within the municipality of Brighton. So on the first line, we'll read, the council gives a bylaws for second, third reading as amended and finally passes on this date. Is that okay with you, Councillor Rowley? Councillor Wheeldon? Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to reports of advisory committees of council, reports, minutes, and council reports. The only one before us is community events and civic awards, with a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receives the minutes of the community events and civic awards advisory committee meeting of April 11th, 2023 as presented. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
May I just draw your attention to the wonderful list of concerts we're having this summer? Keep your list handy. Hope to see you there.
Thank you for that. Anything further? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to reports, minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies, and the only one before us this evening is Quinte Transit. It's moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council received the Quinte Access meeting minutes March 3rd and April 14th, 2023 as presented. Is there any discussion? Councillor Fredis.
To the chair, if I just may make a comment, if you've not had a chance to look at it, I focus every time we have one of these meetings at the Brighton numbers, and we are now well past even pre-COVID numbers. Our utilization of the service has gone up fourfold, and I'm fascinated by the number of charters that we're utilizing here in Brighton. So I think it's great the community's taking advantage of it, and I hope the trend continues.
Agreed. Anything further? Should this read Quinte Transit meeting on the motion? You're okay with that, I assume, as the mover and as the seconder, Councillor Butwell? Any further discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. First piece of correspondence comes from Laura Wang regarding mobile canteen request for location and hydro for private business. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council received the request from Laura Wang regarding location and hydro for private business mobile canteen. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wright.
Sorry about that. I'm all for helping her find a location, but providing hydro. Nobody provides any other business with hydro in the town of Brighton that I'm aware of. And if they are, I want in.
I think staff have been and will continue to work with the proprietor on a location. But the current location suggested has no hydro, and of course that's the concern. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next piece of correspondence comes from Prince Edward County, request for endorsement of a resolution to pause proposed changes to the provincial policy planning statement. particularly regarding natural heritage and agricultural lands. It's moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council supports the request from Prince Edward County to endorse resolution to pause proposed changes to the provincial policy statement, particularly regarding natural heritage and agricultural lands. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And we've all received a note from Jennifer Letts of Let's Get Creative, asking for support for a use of the grassy space owned by the municipality for a vendors market. It's moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council supports the correspondence from Jennifer Letts regarding signage for pedestrian traffic at the corner and the entrance of Presqu'île, and to provide permission for Jennifer to use grass space for outdoor vendors market on May 20th. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to FYI correspondence. The only piece here is from Northumberland County, May 1st to 12th. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council received the Northumberland County updates May 1st to 12th, 2023. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to question period. Are there any members in the gallery who have questions with regard to anything on tonight's agenda? And we have no public on the Zoom meeting. So we will take a 10-minute recess before proceeding into the closed session meeting.